When does ultralight backpacking turn into a stupid light experience that could even end quite poorly? If you're trying to cut weight and become an ultralight backpacker, it's important to know which decisions might be smart and which decisions could actually have a catastrophic impact on your future ability to hike. And we don't want you to go there. Well, it's a little noisy where I am. I decided to just take a walk instead of a hike today because you can see the big clouds behind me. There's a winter storm coming in here right at the very end of winter, and lots of snow predicted. So unfortunately not a great day to go backpacking or even hiking in the mountains. Ultralight backpacking has kind of been the pinnacle over the past several years. It's the goal for many people who are doing long distance backpacking, and with good reason. The lighter your pack, the easier it is going to be for you to hike big miles. And if you're out there on a long distance trail, it's not necessarily about getting to camp and having a luxury experience. It's about making miles. So the lighter you are, the less gear you carry, or the lighter your gear is, then the better it is for you as a long distance hiker. But I know not everybody watching this channel is a backpacker, and not everybody cares so much about weight as they do about the overall experience of being on the trail. So let's talk about that and when you might not want to make some ultralight decisions. I have seen people bragging about their 12-pound base weight, 10-pound base weight, even going out and testing out a 5-pound base weight minus food and water. Those are consumable, so they don't count into your base weight. And I think the more people promote ultralight backpacking, the more beginner backpackers feel like they are at a disadvantage or somehow not good enough if their pack weighs over 25 or 30 pounds. If it weighs 45 pounds, I think a lot of times, particularly with long distance trails, there's sort of a stigma to having a pack that's too heavy. And we're going to break that today. I find that generally speaking, the backpacking community is very warm and welcoming and helpful, but I have also seen unfortunate times where people who consider themselves experienced backpackers take it upon themselves to, quote, help somebody who has a pack that they deem to be too heavy. When I have been on the trail, there are times where I have seen other hikers belittle folks who are beginner backpackers and just don't know how to lighten their packs, or who, for whatever reason, choose to carry a heavier pack. They can be mean and say things like, you know, you shouldn't be out here, or you don't know what you're doing, or let me help you with a pack shakedown. And that might come from a place of wanting to help somebody have a better experience. But at the same time, it's better to wait until invited if you feel like you've got more experience and you want to share your wisdom with somebody who looks like they're carrying a heavier pack, because you just don't really know why they're carrying a heavier pack. If you are a beginning backpacker, I want you to get out there and have a good time, even if you do feel like your pack is on the heavy side, because there are lots of ways to trim the weight. Experience will help you make those decisions. Over time, you're going to figure out what gear you don't need, what gear you might want to trade in for something lighter. Going ultralight, if that's your goal, is something that I look at as a process. You may start here at 45 or even 50 pounds for your first backpacking trip, and over time you may get down to 20 or 15 or 10, and that's amazing as long as you're being safe and you are prepared for where you're going. Don't make decisions to cut gear just because you feel like you need to keep up with people who are rocking an ultralight pack. They probably have different goals than you do, and they probably have a lot of experience, hopefully, in making the right choices as far as what to bring and what to leave at home. I talk a lot on my channel about how to lighten your pack, how to save weight in your pack, different types of gear that make your pack lighter. And a lot of times I get a little pushback on that because people are like, well, I want to take this or I want to take that. And honestly, take whatever you want backpacking. You look at me and you say, okay, well, she's got a lightweight pack, she's got lightweight gear, and I do. And that is because that is what works best for me. Now, when you go backpacking, whether it's for long distance trail or for just a weekend out, you need to take what is best for you, not me, but for you. The purpose of my videos, and I think for a lot of other people that are making backpacking videos, is just to provide education and information that's going to help you have more fun outdoors. That's absolutely my goal. I want people to be able to get outside, whatever their abilities, whatever their background, and enjoy themselves. Taking an ultralight pack when it's not the appropriate type of gear could be a big mistake, and it wouldn't be something that I would recommend. The biggest problem with ultralight backpacking is taking gear that's not appropriate for the conditions. So if you look around here at the sky, this is impending snow. We're supposed to get at least a foot of snow tonight, which is why I'm not out in the woods, right? Not only knowing what is in the forecast as far as what you might encounter, but the terrain, conditions, even if you're going to be doing things like road walks or, on a trail that I'm doing, there's a lot of dogs that people might encounter, and some of them are kind of feral dogs. So having the right gear to deal with those situations is really vitally important to having a good hike. If you take a pack that only weighs 10 or 12 pounds because you think, I just want to be ultralight, I want to be able to brag about my base weight, you can find yourself in a really bad situation where you don't have the gear or equipment that you need to, number one, save your life, or number two, just enjoy the experience. I mean, you might find yourself cold or wet or hungry because you don't have what you need to have. Whenever you're thinking about what to put in your pack, first think about where you're going, how long you're going, how much hiking you're going to have compared to how much time in camp. What the conditions might be should they change unexpectedly. You might head out, say, in the White Mountains on a beautiful day and suddenly find out the temperature has dropped and it's cold and windy and wet. You didn't bring your rain jacket because you wanted to be ultralight. You could potentially be in a deadly situation. Figuring out where you're going, what you might need to take, and making sure that those things are in your pack is really important. Of course, the 10 essentials, which I'm going to do another video on, talk about why those are still relevant. Those should be in your pack, but also just decisions about gear. So for example, if I was going to go out and hike in weather like this, I'd want to make sure that I could start a fire, and I might even take some fire starter with me because I might encounter wet and damp wood. I would certainly not take a 30-degree quilt or a 30-degree sleeping bag just because it's lighter. I would make sure I had a warm enough sleeping bag and probably a warm liner as well. I would want to make sure that I had ways to stay dry, and so those would go into my pack. And I might even, instead of taking my really lightweight rain jacket from Light Heart Gear, I might take a heavier rain jacket, like one from Arc'teryx that I know is going to not only keep me dry, but also help to keep me warm. A lot of people who are pursuing that goal of an ultralight pack also do things like leave extra clothes at home. That's okay, I guess, if you don't mind hiking and sleeping in your clothes, but if you encounter bad weather and get wet, you could find yourself with hypothermia even when the weather is in the 50s because you don't have a way to get dry and to warm up your body. I always carry extra sleep clothes, and they are wool, so they will keep me warm whether they are wet or dry, but I keep those clothes in my pack in a place where they're not going to get wet, because if I do end up in that circumstance where it's pouring rain unexpectedly, it was supposed to be sunny all day, and all of a sudden the sky opens up and it's ice cold rain, and I'm wet, and this has happened to me. I've been wet head to toe when I didn't expect to be, but I know that I can pitch my tent, I can crawl in my tent, I can put on my warm clothes, I can crawl in my quilt, and I can get warmed up, and I'm going to be much safer than if I said, I don't need those clothes, I'm going to sacrifice that pound or half pound even just to get my pack weight down a little bit. The goal of backpacking is not to go as light as you can. The goal of backpacking is to get out there and have a great time. So if that means that you want to take something extra, maybe you want to take an insulated mug so that you can have your coffee while you're cooking your dinner. Fine, do it. Absolutely do it. Make those decisions based on what is best for you, what is best for your type of backpacking. When it comes to cooking, a lot of ultralight backpackers go stoveless, and they just reconstitute their food in a Ziploc bag, and that's what they eat. That's not, to me, very satisfying, and I like to have a stove. I also like to have a stove because I know, again, in a situation where maybe I'm facing hypothermia or unexpected cold temperatures, I can heat something up and have some warm food that's going inside my body and helping me to get warm. If you're going to be pushing 30 miles a day and you're going to go to bed at 9 o'clock at night and be up at 4 to hike again, then you may not really care about the luxuries that you would encounter in camp. You might not care about sitting around with your feet up and enjoying a backpacking meal and then having some tea or a cocktail when you go to bed. So you might not want to carry those extra things, but do keep in mind the safety ramifications of those choices, and make sure that you're not making the stupid decisions just in service of being ultralight. Another time when being ultralight could be a problem is when you are picking gear that is so delicate that it is not going to be durable enough for the type of hike that you're doing. If you are going out into a very rugged landscape, you might find that that lightweight pack made of lightweight fabric is going to tear, and then all of a sudden you maybe have a big hole, and perhaps you didn't bring any duct tape or any other kind of tape because you wanted to be ultralight, and all of a sudden you're having to figure out, okay, how can I repair this pack in the field so that I'm not losing gear along the way? Same thing can happen for your clothes. I mean, you may get caught on brambles or branches and find that you need to make a field repair. So carry those little extra things, even if it's just a tiny little piece of tenacious tape. I don't carry a whole lot. They come in sheets. You can buy a packet. They're about this big. I also have some duct tape wrapped around my trekking poles, but unfortunately that degrades over time. So if you're doing a long trek, you're going to find that, 2 or 3 months in, especially if it's been raining a lot and you're getting wet, that duct tape doesn't work well or doesn't even really come off the poles. Better to wrap it around a plastic card or something and stick it in your pack. It might be a little bit safer. But now you also might not want to be ultralight just because you need comfort. I hear from a lot of people on my channel who have issues like, a bad back or a knee that gives them trouble or a hip that hurts. And so sleeping on one of those closed cell foam pads just because it's ultralight or fast, you just throw it out on the ground and lay down and go to sleep, right? That might not be the best decision. Maybe it's better to take an inflatable sleeping pad that's going to give you more cushion so that you can hike more miles the next day and not wake up achy and in pain and uncomfortable. And what about navigation? People say, oh, I don't need a map. I don't need a compass because I've got a phone. I rely on Far Out quite a lot. Other people use other electronic applications like 𝐒𝐻𝐬 or Gaia to do their route finding, or even AllTrails, but those are not foolproof, obviously. Your battery runs out. You may not have cell service, and even when you're relying on GPS, like you can use the GPS on Far Out without having your phone on cellular service, so you just put it in airplane mode and the GPS still works, so you don't need a map. But what happens, and I did see a hiker where this actually happened. She was hiking up a 14er here in Colorado, not far from where I live. And as she was climbing up, she lost her phone. So not only did she suddenly not have a way to contact help if she needed it, because she didn't have a Garmin with her, she didn't have her navigation, she didn't have, say, with Far Out, you get water sources and things like that. She didn't have any of that information because her phone went 2,000 feet down the hill when she dropped it. Relying on your phone and not having a backup can be a really poor, stupid light decision. If you're going somewhere and you can get a map, and even if you just print it out on a piece of paper and stick it in a plastic sleeve for the notebook, those kind of things, that's a very lightweight solution for a local map that's got the information you need. You can put notes on it before you go about your route, and then you have a way to get out, to find your way either to your destination or back to the trailhead if you should happen to lose your phone. You don't necessarily need a compass unless that's appropriate for the area you're going. Like, for example, if you were doing the Appalachian Trail, it is so well marked that you really don't need a compass, but you would need some other safety items. And having a map can also be helpful because on a trail like that, where, the trail is it's well marked and you just follow it, right? But what happens if there's a fire? What happens if there is a dangerous animal like an aggressive bear and you need to suddenly take a side trail? You got to go this way or that way and you don't know anything about those trails. Having a map that shows you not only the corridor of where you're going to be hiking, but also the ancillary trails that can provide a safe way to get out and off the trail in case of emergency is really important. I did that on the Colorado Trail, and I also did this on the Appalachian Trail. I carried my phone, but I also had pages from the guidebook for the section that I was going to be hiking. On the Colorado Trail, there's a data book that you can use, and I use that in conjunction with my phone. You can actually see a video up here where I got lost. I lost the trail crossing a snowbank, and it took me a really long time using my phone to figure out how to get back. Far Out was not working effectively. It was telling me I was getting closer, and then I'd turn around and it would say I was getting closer going the other direction. It was just a mess. With the data book, I was able to look at the data points and even just a small little tiny map of the area where I was, and I was able to determine, okay, there's a lake here, and I need to go to this side of the lake in order to get back to the trail. I had to bushwhack. I had to find my way back, but unfortunately, if I had not, then I would have been stuck there until some hiker came within earshot and could hear me calling for help, or I would have had to activate my Garmin emergency and get rescued. And that would have been really embarrassing because it was a beautiful stretch of trail. But if I didn't have a phone and I didn't have a map or a way to figure out where I was going, it could have been a really long and potentially dangerous experience trying to find my way back to where I was supposed to be hiking. I'm sure you may have some of your own thoughts on how ultralight can turn into stupid light backpacking. And if you do, I'd love to hear from you down in the comments below. I always love hearing from folks, whether they are saying, hey, great video, or if they have, a disagreement. That's fine too. I love to hear from everybody. So feel free to go drop a comment down below. If you have not already subscribed, I hope you will do that as well. And I look forward to seeing you again here next time.